empower young professionals with the knowledge to build a healthier relationship with their money. Welcome to Financial First, the Nedbank Edu-series dedicated to empowering young professionals with essential financial knowledge. I'm Kopano Shimange, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you with us. Have you ever considered your relationship with money? What strengths do you bring to the table? At Nedbank, we believe that when you arm yourself with the right information and support, you're able to make sound financial decisions. That's why we're here, to equip you with the tools, insights, and guidance necessary to achieve your financial dreams. In our last episode, we explored financial planning and investment guidance. Today, our focus shifts to first-time home buying for young professionals. Joining us today are Yolenda Jawe, who recently navigated the home buying process, and our Nedbank specialist, Lwazikazi Hanisi, who will provide us with expert insights on how Nedbank can assist you in this important step. Lwazi, Yols, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
Home loans and first-time home buying is such a big topic. Yols, I'd love to start with you. Can you tell us more about your background and what motivated you to buy your first home?
Oh, so literally my background motivated me to buy my first home. You know, growing up, I grew up with my mom and dad until the age of 12 when my mom decided, hey, I'm leaving your father. And she left very far. She went very, very far, from Mpumalanga all the way to Cape Town. And finding herself raising 3 kids, I'm the first, and I've got a younger brother and sister. She literally did all that she could do for us, but we were moving from home to home, living with people. And once we got to a place where she could rent, again, it was, oh, our lease has ended, we've got to move. Or your brother's now moved out, you know, he's living at school or at res. So now we've got to downsize, move from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. There was just so many changes. Every single year we were moving, basically. And I got to a point where I set it in my heart to just buy a home and have a home for us. You know, there's no better feeling than feeling settled. And a home does that for so many people, even myself, and that was a dream. So the minute I started working, literally at the age of 22, I started working, and I happened to actually work at a bank. I decided this is the year I am buying a house. And that's truly where it came from, just from a childhood dream to realizing it at the age of 22.
It must be amazing to say that your first home was one that you bought for your family, with your mother and your siblings in that home.
Absolutely. There's no greater joy, because now even when I want to leave my own house, I can say I'm going home, you know.
That is beautiful, and you're truly blessed to be able to have made that move at such a young age. Lwazi, I want to bring you into the conversation. Can you tell us more about your background and what it is that you do at Nedbank?
Okay, thank you. So I am Lwazi, as you mentioned, and I'm a senior strategy analyst in the retail relationship banking space. So what I do is deliver exceptional customer value propositions for both private clients and small businesses. And my background has always been in finance, so I've been in banking all my career, which has been very exciting. As a young professional myself, you know, and I'm very passionate about empowering young people like me, make better choices, you know, things that we didn't have access to, or the previous generations didn't have access to. So that's exactly what I'm passionate about.
And it's perfect that we are in this type of platform to have that type of conversation together.
Correct.
Yours, when it comes to buying a home, navigating that process can be quite challenging and can be quite daunting. Can you share any hurdles that you came across when it came to you buying your first home, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, Kopano, so many. So I got out of varsity, graduated, and so excited because I studied finance and investment. So I thought, oh, I've got this. I know everything that this journey entails. Walked into a Nedbank branch and was shook, to say the least. I was shocked to find out that what I thought was going to be a simple, here's my payslip, let me sign, let me get the home, was, ma'am, you don't have a credit record. you are fresh out of school. So first of all, that was the biggest hurdle. And it's not going to take you 2 weeks to build a credit record. It's not going to take you 2 months to build. You actually need momentum, consistency, and of course, discipline. So I was really, really fortunate enough to find somebody at the bank to consistently help me through this journey. I mean, he took a year, almost 9 months, I'd say, to just guide me through this journey. You know, the first 3 months were critical because he advised me on getting a credit card and then being disciplined in paying it off every month, and then also teaching me that the installment that I see is not the only amount that I'll be paying towards my house.
That is amazing. Was it a person from Nedbank?
Yes, I went to a Nedbank branch, and my home loan is with Nedbank. So he assisted me in letting me know that there are things like municipal rates and taxes and levies, because I was buying from an estate, and that the house that I'm buying is still being built because I was buying it from a developer. So little old me thought, oh no, I just want to pay or get the home loan and get into the house. But it wasn't that simple. Thankfully, he truly helped me just overcome all these hurdles. And in October that same year, I started this journey in January, I was able to get approved for my first home.
What a journey and what a process, and being able to have somebody to walk you through what it means to buy your first home. Lwazi, can you give us any advice that we can give to young professionals when it comes to getting that first home? What is the process that they can expect?
Okay, so I'm glad you actually mentioned one of the channels that we have, which is the branch. But essentially, there's about a couple of channels that you can, start, the process. So you have your digital platforms, which is the app, the Money app. You also have online, so via the website, you can call the call center, and you can actually even approach your banker, which, gives you that whole personalized experience. And if you do not know your banker, which is very unlikely, you can actually find your banker details on the Money app. And, you even have the functionality to set up an appointment with them. So what can you expect throughout the process, right? So you can fill out the form, very easy process, very simple. You follow the prompts, right? It tells you exactly what information you need to put out, you need to actually capture. And then once you submit the application, the bank then does, the whole assessment to see that, are you able to fulfill your monthly repayments? After that, there is a property assessment being conducted, on your property that you've chosen. And if that is a success, including your credit assessment, then you will get the offer letter, right? So if you are happy with the terms and then you sign it, then the legal process starts. So just high level, the kind of process you can expect.
Yours, you're nodding your head as Lwazi is speaking about the process. This is something that you were familiar with when you were going through your first time home buying experience.
Yes.
One of the biggest steps in buying a home is understanding your finances. How did you go about preparing financially for this big step?
So after the big shock of finding out that it's not just an installment, it's not that monthly repayment only that I'll be paying, I started researching the area that I was buying into, finding out what the rates were so that I could have a realistic view of whether or not I can actually afford this, because you can go into the bank and get the affordability. But in reality, if that's all your money is going to, you won't have anything left at the end of the month to pay for the sewage, the water, the rates and the taxes attached to your home. So I had to go back to budgeting, back to my school books, and really being tight on my money. Of course, I was living at home, so it made it easier, but I needed to stay on track and, of course, create a buffer. Because the other thing that I didn't know is that when you're literally signing your monthly repayment amount, that's probably the minimum that you are going to be paying because of rising interest rates, right? So in a 12-month view, for instance, I literally had to create a little buffer for just in case, there's an announcement that interest rates have gone up. What I signed was what I signed. But interest rates do something else, and I want to keep this home. I also had to prepare for paying it off a little bit more. So every month I added to my installments so that I don't have to pay for my home for a full 20-year term that I did sign.
Lwazi, the way that you are nodding your head, you fully agree with this process.
Yeah.
Can you help the young professionals in knowing, are there any specific tools and resources that can help them, particularly in trying to understand their finances?
So we do have a couple of resources and tools that the young professionals can use. So firstly, we have learn articles. These are curated by subject matter experts. So it's very quick reads, nothing more than 5 minutes. And, it just captures exactly the kind of information you would want to know as a young professional starting the process. So, topics like what to look out for when you are house hunting, when is the right time to buy, how the interest rates actually affect your repayments. So essentially, it's just like topics that are top of mind for someone who's actually starting the process for the first time. And then we have a finance calculator that gives you 3 types of calculations, which is your affordability and your bond repayments and also bond transfer costs. But also, these are just estimations to guide you in the process. We also have a credit score. We can actually view credit score on the Money app, right? Mm-hmm. And I think this just empowers you, to understand where you stand and do you need to actually start improving that score, trying to consider, is it the right time to buy? Should I, work on the credit score first before you get to that point? And then lastly, we have a home buying toolkit, which actually allows you to get a pre-approval. And I think this really helped me in my process because it gave me an idea of, what properties at what price point I can start looking. We also have property reports. Right? So 3 property reports a month where you can actually input the property that you have interest in, and it tells you insights. So it gives you insights on the property, like the history, your market value, etc. And also you are able to browse through the different properties, the listings that is, to see if there's anything suitable for yourself.
There's so many amazing tools and resources at our disposal.
Correct.
When we get into that home buying process. Yours, was there a moment for you during your first home buying process that was particularly impactful or memorable for you?
Ooh, besides getting the keys to my new home, because that's all I looked forward to, I keep saying, for me, it was just having guidance. As young people, I'm glad now that there are resources and toolkits. But 10 years ago when I bought my property and at 22, I was the only person doing it. I didn't have friends doing the same thing, so it was quite a lonely journey. But I think the most memorable is having, my branch guy. I called him my branch guy because Owen is his name, and I'll never forget it. He was always there. He even gave me his number and he said, listen, if the attorneys are calling you and there's this instruction and this contract you don't understand, I am here for you. So I think that's, for me, is the most memorable experience that I'd had at a bank. I was already working in the corporate side, but I never had that face-to-face banker at the branch. In fact, working at the bank, I had my own banker, but nobody was as helpful as the branch. And sometimes we overlook it. So that's basically what I'd say to young people. Like a library, we overlook libraries where there's tangible books. There's a branch where there's somebody who actually cares for you. And that's probably my biggest takeaway, having somebody like Owen to walk me through this journey.
Rosie, everybody now wants to buy a house because we all want this process. I want that process too. Can you tell us more about something this amazing, as well as the special CVP offerings that Nedbank has for young professionals who are making this decision to buy their first home?
Okay, so, when we design CVPs, we make sure that the customer is at the center of everything, right? So we try and meet you at the different life stages that you are. So we do have an offering for first-time home buyers, which is the bank is willing to finance up to 109% of your home loan value. So basically, we are saying that we want to give you headroom to cover costs like your attorney registration costs or even property transfer costs, because we want you to feel, like this process is easy and you don't want to be stressing about, trying to build up those funds first before you start, getting your first property. And we also do offer, or you may qualify for about 50% of your bond registration costs. And if you actually complete your application on our digital platforms, as I mentioned previously, you actually get to get yourself a cash bonus of up to 20,000 Rand. Imagine. And this is calculated at 1% of your home loan value. And you can actually use the funds, for moving, for, buying furniture, or even start building up the reserves for your emergency funds.
Girl math says that if I get 20,000 rand back,
Don't do it.
okay, I'll just stop right there. Let's just stop right there. Yols, what tips can you give to young professionals who are thinking about starting their home buying journey?
Ooh, it's a long game. A 20-year contract is very long term. So I'd say do all the research that you can and do it now. There are multiple resources. I'm so glad Lozi has mentioned so many because at that time, I don't know if they were. Thankfully, I had Owen. Owen was my toolkit in my case. But there are so many resources. We don't have to just rely on only social media or only a website. You can just use everything that's at your disposal, number one. Number two, do the price comparison, buy something you can afford in the location that you want to. Most of us want to buy houses just because, we can afford this much, so you're going to stay there for 20 years? If not that, you want to at least buy it as an investment and have a tenant who will live there or want to live in the location that you want to. It's not just I qualify for a home loan. It's a really big decision. I see it as like a marriage, or even a way of creating generational wealth. So it's not a decision that you make overnight, number one, and take the time. Most of the time we're rushing because we qualify, we just got the job. If you can take the time now to make a quality decision, you won't have to change your mind in 5 years, most likely.
That is such great advice. Lozi, do you have any other advice for the young professionals who want to start this process as well?
Okay, those are really great nuggets. So I just want to highlight 4 things. So I would say have a non-negotiable, a list of non-negotiables. I think this really helps. Just like, when you're starting out a new partner, you look at things that you're not willing to compromise on because nothing is ever 100%. So definitely keep a list of non-negotiables. Secondly, insurance. This is a big purchase and, it's very important to you. Just like you insure your cell phones, definitely try and get insurance for your property, including the contents. So do speak to your private banker and do, get advice in terms of what can you look out for. And then thirdly, I would say you do not have to conform to the term that is stipulated in your agreement. So if you're financing your place for 20, 25, or 30 years, you don't have to pay it off over that period. If your budget allows and you're not financially stretching yourself, do pay a little extra, to make sure that you pay it over a shorter period. And then lastly, this is a big milestone, so do celebrate it.
Yes,
do celebrate it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned the keys.
Yes.
When you get the keys,
I had
celebrate.
champagne.
Definitely.
And just hone in on it because it's a big step and a long, like you said, it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
It's a relationship, and one that's not short term.
Yours, I'm sure you had a dream about how the whole home buying experience would be. How was your dream different to what the reality of the home buying process was?
Day and night. How expectation versus reality, I expected to walk into the branch, sign my papers, get my keys, but so politely, the banker told me, ma'am, there's no keys here at the branch for you. And this is a process. So I didn't know terms like bond registration, attorney fees that are involved, and so many other things, your levies, your municipal bill that comes on top of this monthly repayment that we can see you qualify for. There are all these other additional costs. There's water bills that's attached to the very house you're buying from a developer. So at least in my case, there was no transfer cost. I didn't even know that there's such a thing as transfer cost. Why am I paying for my name to be... All these things were so overwhelming at that time. And there were brand new terms to me. Even though I had studied finance, I did not actually study home loans per se. So the reality of it is time was the biggest factor. And of course, all these other terms needed to be broken down to me to understand first before I sign a contract and go into, this home buying process altogether.
You had somebody who helped you through that process and understand what those terms mean. Lozi, I want to ask you, for many of us who are listening to all these terms, it seems quite daunting.
Yeah.
Can you help us understand what they are and how do we actually deal with these things?
Well, thank goodness you have a private banker because, someone who knows and, is an expert around these terms and, the process will definitely hold your hand throughout, right? But essentially, I'm glad you all spoke about, the very scary stuff.
Big words.
Big words.
Big words.
Big words. But as mentioned, on our website, we definitely have articles that actually break it down. So if you go through it, it will tell you exactly all the hidden costs. I know they always say that, but but definitely when you are buying, there are attorney fees, there's property transfer costs, and all of these you can actually build into your home loan, as I mentioned, because we give you a loan to value of up to 109%.
109.
Yes, 109%.
Help me understand. 100% plus 9%.
Correct.
The
Yeah.
extra 9?
Up to 9.
Yeah.
Correct.
So what is that about? Why does it go over 100%?
So the up to 9% definitely helps you cater for the hidden costs that you do not anticipate as a first-time home buyer, and you basically know nothing about. But if you need help, your private banker is there to hold your hand throughout the process and explain the very hard terms. You can ask all the questions. They will be there for you. You don't have to stress and go study what each term means. You're studying finance. They are there to help you.
We sometimes feel like that, like we have to do all this studying before we walk into a bank or before we inquire or before we even fill out a form. And what I'm learning from you is that even if I don't know those things, I can actually inquire with someone from Nedbank. I can go online and that information will be there and explained for me.
Correct. No, 100%.
Blasi, I'd like to find out about your first-time home buying experience. I can tell from the laugh that something happened. Can you tell us about your process?
As I mentioned, getting a pre-approval was very important because here I was looking at properties, mansions that I could probably never afford at that point. But essentially how I prepped for my first time was budgeting. You already spoken intensely about it. So I think budgeting helps you understand what levers you can pull, what adjustments you can make to make sure that, your disposable income is at a point where you can actually make that first purchase. So if it means closing those accounts, paying off low-hanging debt, or even cutting down on the online shopping, which is something I really love, you can definitely do that. But secondly, I actually reached out to my financial advisor because I feel like financial advisors are more equipped to understand your financial standing. They know your personal balance sheet, that's what I call it. And they understand your short to long-term goals and how this purchase, fits into the bigger picture. So definitely reached out to my financial advisor. So between my financial advisor and my banker, they helped me throughout the process.
It's a long-term game.
It's a long-term game. Buying your first home is like a long-term relationship. You are in that deal for a while.
Yeah.
So, Yols, can you tell us, how do you manage that long-term relationship? How do you manage the payments? How do you manage keeping the home? How do you manage that relationship with your first home?
Hey, it's a long one, and thankfully I'm already married, so that made it a little bit easier. But I actually bought as a single woman. Maybe that's why I got married. I kind of had a practice round, But I think the first thing that I did, thankfully, my banker helped me with this, was create a buffer. So that small emergency fund, just in case interest rates increase or something happens that month that's beyond my control and I'm not able to meet all my obligations, The other big thing was, don't take too much credit. Just because the bank allows you R1 million loan, you don't have to take all of it. And then on top of that, you're building your credit record. Don't get store accounts, clothing accounts. So one of the key things in terms of discipline that helped me was to get a credit card and pay it off every single month and build that little bit of discipline. So once I got into paying off my house, in fact, I don't have my credit card anymore. I don't see the need for it unless I'm traveling, but outside the country. Just needed to be specific. However, now I pay a little bit more on my installments because I definitely want to shorten that 20-year term. This relationship needs to end at some point, and I don't want it to be as long as my marriage, Secondly, I use my access facility. So when I do have large amounts as a content creator, sometimes you get a big campaign. I actually chuck it in. I use the word chuck because I don't want to look too much. I just chuck it into my bond access facility. And then when I do have a big purchase, like recently I bought my car cash, I can actually withdraw from that access facility and pay. In fact, my banker called me one day and they actually said, you can adjust your installments once again because your access facility has had a large amount for a long time. So you can completely readjust your monthly repayments. But knowing me, I want to keep paying more so that this relationship ends at some point and sooner than 20 years. So that's really how I manage it. And it helps me always know that at any given time, if there is no money, there's the access facility to at least cover most of my obligations. And second to that, it's always a good buffer to the bank for me to look good from a default risk perspective. I'm actually a really good payer, and I do have that little bit of another second emergency account, if you want to call it.
Yours, you mentioned so many interesting things, but the first thing I want to understand is, what is that access that you're speaking about?
So an access facility is, you've got your bond, right? Say it's 500,000 Rand and you have an access facility attached to that. It's not like an overdraft, but think about it like an overdraft facility, but it's money. In this case, that's a plus, it's not a minus, right? You can some people put their salaries in there. It drops your principal amount, the principal amount that you signed for, that 500,000 Rand loan. But in my case, if you're putting in 200,000 or 50,000 Rand, it drops it significantly, or even your salary. So in that month, you're paying less interest, because you're paying interest on your principal balance. And now suddenly, if you've paid 50,000 Rand in there, you're owing 450 to the bank this month because you've got a huge amount that you've put in there. But then at a time where you need it, you can go to your access facility and literally on your money app, transfer that 50,000 Rand into your current account or the account that you're using to do whatever it is that you want to do. So the bank really allows you to access that amount at any given time, which is amazing, But the principle of it is it actually reduces your interest every single month if you are using it effectively.
Buying a home is truly a big step.
Yeah.
And learning how to manage your finances is an important one.
Yeah.
I actually have a question for y'all. How do you fight the temptation to actually go into the access fund?
I studied finance and investment, so I always say it's the degree, but I've been very pedantic. My mom used to keep receipts. And I think it goes back to the first question of my background, seeing things. My mom used to always have a handle. She's got to become admin. So her administration has always been 100%. So for me, I've always attached anything with money with my goals. So whether it's saving or my access facility or investments, and I separate the two. If I'm saving for something. If I'm investing, it's long term. Yeah. And if I'm using my access facility, I'm saving on interest. So I look at that as, you're paying less interest. Don't touch that money. Unless I'm buying a phone and I'm paying less interest than what I'm saving, then I'd rather take from my access facility and compare the two. So for me, it's an interest rate game, and we want to pay less interest.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question in terms of learning about your finances. And it seems as though buying a home teaches you so much, not just about home buying, but about your finances as well. Yeah. For those who haven't bought a home and they're listening to this conversation and they're just like, I don't know all those things yet, where do they start in terms of preparing?
I always say your first entry point should be your private banker, because they can direct you to, the different products if needs be, but definitely they are the entry point to the bank, because you do have that one-on-one relationship with them. I think, as you mentioned, we say digital when you want it, but human when you need it. So definitely your private banker. Yeah.
Thank you, Yols and Razikazi, for sharing your experiences and your insights with us. It's clear that with careful financial planning and the right support, buying your first home can be a rewarding experience. And for our listeners, remember that by taking control of your finances and making informed decisions, you can achieve your dream of home ownership. Join us next time as we dive deeper into essential financial topics to empower you on your journey. In our next episode, we will tackle student loan management and debt consolidation. Until then, continue to make wise financial decisions and take care.